Have you ever walked into a room full of people and still felt completely invisible? That heavy silence around you, like a fog no one else seems to notice, but it presses on your chest every time you try to speak, try to smile, try to matter. You scroll through your phone, hoping for a message that never comes. You hear laughter from others and wonder what it feels like to be someone who is missed, someone who is invited, someone who belongs. But instead, you sit with yourself. Again. Alone. And maybe it's not just today. Maybe this feeling has been with you for a while. A quiet ache that no one talks about. People say things like, just make friends, or put yourself out there, as if your isolation is a choice, as if you haven't already tried, as if being a woman with no friends is just a phase. But deep down, you know it's not that simple, because this emptiness, this space around you, it didn't just appear overnight. It built itself slowly, through betrayals, through misunderstandings, through moments where you were too real, too soft, too strong, too different, and instead of being accepted, you were pushed to the side. But listen closely. Being alone does not mean you are broken. Being without friends does not make you unworthy. What it means is that life has given you a different kind of journey, one where your growth doesn't depend on anyone else, one where your strength is not fed by approval, but by resilience. Because in the silence of loneliness, something powerful begins to happen. You start hearing your own voice. You begin noticing the parts of yourself that were always drowned out by noise. You begin to see that solitude is not a punishment, it's preparation. And that's why you're here. You are not here to be pitied. You are not here to be fixed. You are here because something in you is waking up. Something that no friendship could ever complete for you. Something that no social circle could ever validate. This is your time to become everything you once waited for others to reflect back to you. Every tear, every lonely night, every quiet day, it's not the end of your story. It's the start of your power. So stay, watch till the end, because what's coming isn't just motivation, it's your turning point. By the time you finish this, you will no longer fear your solitude. You will understand it, you will use it, and you will rise from it, not desperate for connection, but grounded in your worth. The kind of worth that doesn't need permission. The kind of worth that walks alone and still stands tall. The world may not see you yet, but by the end of this, you will see yourself, and that will change everything. There is a kind of strength that doesn't scream, doesn't need applause, and doesn't ask for company. It's the strength that grows in silence, matures in isolation, and speaks only when it knows its voice can't be ignored. That's the strength you are beginning to develop, because while others are lost in the crowd, you've been forced to face yourself. You've sat in the discomfort of your own thoughts. You've had to ask the hard questions no one else dares to confront. Who am I without anyone? What am I really made of when no one's watching? Those questions don't weaken you. They free you. You've been trained by pain, sharpened by solitude, forged in the fire of your own doubts. And what that's created is not a fragile version of you, but a woman who knows how to survive when the world goes quiet, when support disappears, when no one shows up. You know how to stand even if your legs shake. You know how to keep going even with a cracked heart. That's power. Not the kind people post about. Not the kind that wins popularity. The kind that lasts. The kind that doesn't vanish when life stops being easy. You weren't born to fit in. You were born to stand out. And not just because you're different, but because your path was never meant to look like anyone else's. You were meant to lead, not follow. Meant to rise, not blend. But leadership starts with self. And rising begins with a decision to stop shrinking yourself to fit into places you've outgrown. That's why it's a gift that you're alone right now, because this space is not empty, it's sacred. It's where you'll build your foundation. where you'll meet your truest self without masks, filters, or fear. And in that space, you realize something. You don't need people to complete you. You don't need attention to validate you. You are whole, even if no one sees it yet. You are worthy, even if no one says it out loud. The absence of friends does not mean the absence of value. It means that your journey is demanding something deeper, something real. Not surface level bonds, not forced connections, but alignment with who you truly are. When that alignment begins, everything changes. You don't chase anymore, you attract. You don't beg anymore, you build. And what you build from this quiet season will last far beyond anything you could have found in noise, because it was earned, it was chosen, it was forged in the truth of who you are, not in the illusion of who others wanted you to be. So don't run from your solitude. Let it refine you. Let it shape the woman you've always had inside. Because the woman with no friends is not empty. She is simply rising alone. And when she does rise, nothing will be able to pull her back down. What if the space you call loneliness is actually just room being cleared for something greater? What if this silence around you is the universe's way of removing the noise so you can finally hear your own truth? You've been taught to believe that connection equals happiness, that being surrounded means being whole. But some of the most powerful versions of you can only be born in solitude. Because when no one is there to influence your thoughts, you begin to discover what you really believe. When no one is clapping for you, you begin to realize what truly motivates you. And when no one is validating your worth, you start to build it from the inside. You are not behind. You are not less than. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. Life is giving you time to detox from expectations that were never yours to carry. It's removing the distractions that kept you chasing approval instead of alignment. It's pulling you back from circles that only diluted your energy. You are not missing out. You are being set apart to level up. This is where real power begins, not in being seen, but in seeing yourself. Not in being included, but in becoming undeniable. When you stop chasing people who don't understand your worth, you create space for people who do. But even before they arrive, you begin to feel different. Your energy shifts. You're no longer starving for acceptance because you've learned to feed yourself with truth. You don't compromise just to be liked because you've tasted the peace that comes from being real. You stop shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown and instead start expanding into the life you were meant to create. That shift doesn't require anyone else. It starts with you. You were never meant to be ordinary, and ordinary people often feel uncomfortable in the presence of extraordinary ones. That's why you were left out. That's why you were overlooked. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you were too much for a shallow space. Now you have the freedom to rebuild everything, but this time on your terms, your values, your pace. You are not a victim of isolation. You are the architect of reinvention. What you build now will be solid because it's not based on pleasing others. It's based on knowing yourself. So stop waiting for someone to come along and make life feel meaningful. You are the meaning. You are the beginning of something rare, something strong, grounded, and whole. This silence isn't your enemy. It's your invitation. Walk deeper into it. Listen closely. What you'll find there isn't loneliness. It's power. A power that doesn't rely on who's around you, but who you decide to become. And once you become her, you'll never go back to needing less than what you truly deserve. The people you surround yourself with shape your identity, whether you realize it or not. Their energy, their habits, their standards quietly influence how you think, what you tolerate, and how you see yourself. So if you've been walking alone, don't see it as a loss. See it as protection, because sometimes being alone is better than being surrounded by people who poison your spirit and pull you away from your potential. You're not meant to just have company. You're meant to have clarity. And that clarity often comes when the room is empty and the only voice left is your own. If being alone has taught you anything, it's that not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone qualifies to stand next to the woman you're becoming. That version of you, grounded, powerful, self-respecting, she doesn't beg for presence. She protects her peace. She doesn't lower her standards just to feel included. She knows that energy is contagious, and she refuses to sit at tables where authenticity is unwelcome. So if your circle is small or non-existent right now, let it be. There is no growth in forced connection. There is no power in clinging to people who don't value who you are at your core. You are learning to sit with yourself. That is the beginning of emotional independence. It's the moment you stop relying on others to soothe your fears, validate your worth, or make you feel enough. And once you've tasted that kind of strength, it becomes very hard to return to anything less. You no longer measure your value by who checks in. You no longer feel desperate for attention. Because you've built something stronger than external validation, you've built inner alignment. A knowing that who you are as you are is already more than enough. That shift changes everything. You start making decisions based on your values, not on someone else's approval. You stop tolerating disrespect, even in silence. You begin choosing peace over popularity and truth over temporary comfort. You no longer need people to agree with your path. You just need the courage to walk it. And that courage is born from solitude. It's in the quiet where you've grown. It's in the stillness where you've healed. And now, from that space, you are learning to protect yourself. Not with walls, but with wisdom. The right people will come, but they will not find a woman waiting to be rescued. They will find someone who rescued herself. Someone who learned that strength isn't loud, but it is undeniable. Someone who knows how to walk alone and still carry grace. Because the woman who chooses herself, especially when no one else does, becomes unstoppable. Not because she's perfect, but because she's done depending on the world to give her what she now gives herself: permission, power, and peace. And once you own those things, solitude stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like freedom. You are not hard to love. You are just no longer willing to be loved the wrong way. That's why silence doesn't scare you anymore. That's why you've stopped explaining yourself, stopped apologizing for your depth, stopped shrinking just to keep others comfortable. Because once you've felt the peace of being fully yourself, you can't go back to pretending, you can't go back to dimming your light just to fit into spaces built for smaller versions of you. The absence of friends is not a flaw in your character, it's a sign of your evolution. It means you've grown beyond surface level relationships. It means you're no longer interested in performing for connection. You've started to understand that your time, your energy, and your heart are sacred. You don't owe them to anyone who hasn't earned them. You don't need a crowd to feel seen, because you've stopped seeking visibility and started embodying value. And value doesn't chase. Value stands still and lets the right energy find its way. You've learned to trust the waiting, to trust the empty spaces. Because not everything that fills the void deserves to stay. Not every presence brings peace. Not every voice speaks truth. And now, you are more focused on alignment than attention. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who is no longer afraid to be alone. And, one of the best ideas that I've heard since day one is there is no longer afraid to be alone. She becomes rooted. She becomes unshakable. She doesn't settle because she knows what it costs. She doesn't compromise her standards because she knows what she brings. And that awareness doesn't make her arrogant. It makes her free. Free from the pressure to prove. Free from the need to perform. Free from the chains of codependency that kept her trapped in roles she never chose. You have that freedom now because you've stopped confusing connection with worth. It's not about having more people, it's about having the right ones. But before they arrive, you must become the version of yourself who no longer tolerates fragments. No more halfway love, no more fake smiles, no more one-sided effort. You are not desperate, you are not lonely. You are in transition. And in that transition, you are shedding everything that once made you feel small. You are releasing every narrative that said you had to be liked to be valuable, that you had to be surrounded to be strong, that you had to be chosen to feel complete. Those lies no longer belong to you. You belong to yourself now. And that is more than enough. You walk alone, not because you're unlovable, but because you finally realize you deserve something deeper than convenience. You deserve honesty. You deserve loyalty. You deserve connection that honors your heart. So if that means standing alone until it finds you, then stand with grace. Because the woman who chooses peace over people-pleasing is not lonely. She is powerful. And power doesn't need permission, it only needs truth. And you are finally walking in it. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned. One is a decision rooted in self-awareness. The other is an illusion created by fear. You were never truly abandoned. You were redirected. You were protected from staying small, from settling in spaces where your worth was overlooked, from clinging to people who are only present for convenience, not connection. Their absence is not your loss, it's their reflection. You didn't lose them, they lost the chance to know the woman you're becoming. And now you are no longer begging the world to see you, you are learning to see yourself, fully, honestly, and without apology. This kind of growth doesn't happen in comfort. It doesn't bloom in the noise. It rises in silence. It builds itself in the unseen moments, in the quiet realizations, in the deep decision to no longer abandon yourself just to feel accepted. You've been through enough to understand that not everyone deserves access to your evolution. Some people only come close to distract you from your power, but now you are too awake for that, too aware, too grounded. You've walked through enough darkness to recognize the light you carry, and you've finally decided to protect it. There is power in choosing yourself, in refusing to settle, in walking away from connections that do not nourish your soul. It takes courage to say no, courage to stay empty rather than be filled with what drains you. That courage is rare, but it's rising in you now. You're no longer hiding from your truth. You're facing it, living it, embodying it, and that choice changes everything. Because the woman who accepts her solitude does not come out weaker. She comes out with clarity, with purpose, with standards that cannot be shaken. This is the season where you grow roots, not wings. Roots that dig deep into your identity, that hold you steady in the storms, that remind you who you are when everything else goes quiet. Wings come later, but right now, you're learning to be unmovable, to no longer be swayed by opinions, rejected by silence, or paralyzed by disapproval. You are building a foundation that won't crumble under pressure, a confidence that doesn't ask for permission, a presence that no longer seeks validation because it already knows its worth. Your solitude is not empty, it's sacred. It's where the real you is awakening, the version of you that doesn't need to be liked to feel strong, that doesn't need constant praise to feel seen. You've stopped begging for entry into places that don't reflect your power, because you've realized your presence is the privilege. Your peace is the priority. And your future is not something you wait for, it's something you create. Alone if you must, because alone doesn't mean broken. It means focused. And focus is the birthplace of everything unstoppable. There's a quiet kind of strength that only solitude can teach you. It's not loud, it doesn't need applause, it doesn't shout to prove its worth. It simply exists, steady, unshaken, immovable. It's in the way you keep showing up for yourself when no one is watching. It's in the way you continue to rise without needing permission or praise. It's in the way you've stopped chasing what doesn't align and started honoring what feels true. That strength cannot be borrowed. It cannot be gifted. It's earned in the silence. Built in the space where you stopped trying to be understood and started becoming undeniable. The woman who stands alone is not broken. She is awake. She's aware of her value in a way the world cannot define. She's not searching for a place to belong. She's building one. She no longer begs to be seen because she's already witnessed her own transformation. She's met her own shadow and didn't flinch. She's faced her own emptiness and filled it with substance. She's done being available for anything that doesn't reflect the fullness of who she is. Because once you've tasted self-respect, the thought of begging for basic love becomes unbearable. You are learning that peace is not something given, it's something protected. And you don't have to apologize for choosing it. You don't need to explain why your standards have risen, why your silence has deepened, why your tolerance for the superficial has vanished. When you begin to truly value yourself, everything around you shifts. Your energy becomes more selective. Your time becomes sacred. Your presence becomes rare. Not because you're avoiding the world, but because you've stopped letting it define you. You no longer fear outgrowing people, places, or versions of yourself. Growth requires letting go. Healing requires separation. And elevation requires solitude. You were not meant to fit into every room. You were meant to redesign your own. And you don't have to wait for anyone to join you there. Your journey is not on pause. It's unfolding. With or without a crowd. With or without constant affirmation. The woman who walks alone walks deeper into truth, into clarity, into power. This is not a chapter of loneliness. It's a chapter of alignment. A chapter where everything false falls away, where everything shallow dissolves, where everything real finally rises. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mislabel your isolation. They don't need to get it. You do. You know what it's costing you to hold on to what's not yours anymore. You know what it's costing you to pretend. And now you're done pretending. You're not cold, you're clear. You're not bitter, you're becoming. You're not lost, you're refining. And nothing is more powerful than a woman who no longer needs the world to complete her. Because she's already found the one thing it cannot take away, her own truth. You don't rise by being accepted. You rise by accepting yourself. Not the polished version the world applauds, but the raw, unfiltered, honest you. The one who has been through silence and storms, rejection and realization, pain and purpose. You rise when you stop editing your truth to fit someone else's comfort. You rise when you realize that belonging to others means nothing if you've abandoned yourself in the process. And now, you are remembering what it feels like to return to yourself. Unapologetically, you've spent enough time wondering if you were too much or not enough. You've overanalyzed silence, misread distance, and tried to earn space in people's lives who never valued your presence. But those days are behind you. Because now, you're done trying to be chosen. You've realized that you are the chooser. You are the one who decides what energy enters your life. You are the one who decides what stays and what leaves. That shift isn't just confidence, it's liberation. And once you taste that freedom, you stop waiting for validation from people who were never meant to understand you. Your worth was never in how many people stand beside you. It was never in the noise, the likes, the invitations, or the messages that never came. Your worth is in your ability to stand tall in your silence, to stand whole in your solitude, to stand strong in your truth without asking for permission to exist. You are not behind, you are not invisible, you are evolving in a way that few have the courage to. You are becoming the woman who no longer flinches at distance, who no longer doubts her place, who no longer needs proof to believe in her own power. This is what self-possession looks like. It's not arrogance, it's not ego, it's clarity. It's knowing who you are and refusing to forget it when the world goes quiet. You're no longer afraid of being misunderstood because you understand yourself. You're no longer trying to meet standards that drain your spirit. You've created your own, and they're rooted in truth, in peace, in integrity, the kind of integrity that cannot be shaken by temporary loneliness, because you've learned that being alone with your peace is better than being surrounded and feeling empty. You are not waiting for life to begin. It's already happening here in the quiet, in the work, in the becoming. Every time you choose yourself, every time you say no to what no longer fits, every time you let go of what makes you shrink, you grow, you rise, you reclaim pieces of yourself that you once gave away too easily, and now there is no going back, because this version of you, the one who is calm, clear, grounded, and focused, she is not interested in being tolerated. She is here to be honored. And if that means walking alone, she walks with power in every step.